breaking news that nobody saw coming. Alex Eala just shattered Rafael Nadal's carefully constructed narrative live on national television. No filters, no rehearsed gratitude, no emotional theatrics. The tennis world expected humility, maybe even tears. What they got instead was honesty. Raw, direct, and impossible to ignore. A truth so unexpected it left commentators stunned and fans split down the middle. What really happened between the Filipino rising star and the so-called gift that was meant to define her career? And why did she choose this exact moment to finally speak up? When Alex Eala walked through the gates of the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca at just 14 years old, the story practically wrote itself. A young girl from the Philippines, a country rarely associated with elite tennis, given what was described as the opportunity of a lifetime. Rafael Nadal himself had extended the invitation. The media embraced it instantly. Headlines framed it as pure generosity. A global icon giving back. A legend opening doors that would otherwise stay closed. The narrative was irresistible and almost too perfect to question. Nadal's team reinforced that image at every turn. They presented it as mentorship and charity wrapped in legacy. Photos showed Eala training on the same courts where Nadal built his greatness. Videos highlighted her receiving guidance from academy coaches under the powerful umbrella of the Nadal brand. Everything looked flawless. A humble champion uplifting a hungry underdog. The kind of story that restores faith in sports. But stories that polished usually hide complexity beneath the surface. Because behind the carefully curated posts and glowing press releases was a reality that did not fit the script. For Alex Eala, that reality was intense, demanding, and carried quietly for years. The academy was not free. Despite how it was portrayed, her family paid tuition. She was a student athlete in a high-performance program, not a charity case. Yet the narrative refused to change. Every win was attributed to Nadal's influence. Every loss sparked questions about whether she was worth the investment. Her talent was never discussed on its own. It was always measured against his name, his academy, his legacy. That weight grew heavier with time. Eala worked harder than most people ever realize. She trained through injuries and exhaustion. She competed across Europe while teenagers her age lived normal lives. She gave up friendships, family moments, and the simple experiences of adolescence. All in pursuit of a dream the world insisted was only possible because of Rafael Nadal. But was it really? Or was she the one doing the work from the start? The academy provided access. World-class facilities. Elite coaching. Exposure to top competition. But access is not achievement. Eala was the one stepping onto the court. She was the one battling through long matches under the Spanish sun. She was the one carrying the pressure of representing an entire nation every time she played. Nadal's name opened doors, but Eala was the one who had to walk through them and prove she belonged. For years, she played the role expected of her. She smiled through interviews. She expressed gratitude on cue. She said the right things because young athletes are taught not to disrupt a working narrative. You do not challenge the story when it benefits you, even if it is incomplete. But gratitude and truth are not the same thing. And eventually, truth demands space. As her success grew, so did the tension. Junior Grand Slam titles, ITF wins, rising rankings, conversations about the future of women's tennis. The Philippines celebrated her as a trailblazer. On paper, everything looked perfect. Yet behind the scenes, something shifted. Her interviews changed. The enthusiasm remained, but it was guarded. Answers about the academy became shorter and more careful. She stopped feeding the fairy tale. That kind of change does not happen without reason. With maturity came perspective. Eala began to see how her story was being used. Articles mentioned Nadal before mentioning her achievements. Sponsors cared more about the connection than her actual game. Fans asked about training where Rafa trained instead of asking about her forehand or mental toughness. Slowly, she realized she was becoming a footnote in someone else's legacy instead of writing her own. Turning professional intensified everything. The jump from juniors was brutal. Stronger opponents, injuries, inconsistency. And with every loss came whispers. Maybe the academy was not enough. Maybe she was overhyped. Maybe she could not make the leap. The criticism hurt, but what hurt more was knowing her identity as a player had never truly been her own. She began distancing herself quietly, training elsewhere, working with different coaches, building a team focused on her needs rather than preserving a narrative. It was not dramatic. It did not make headlines. It was simply a young woman reclaiming control of her career. But the tennis world does not release its stories easily. Every interview circled back to Nadal. Every achievement was shared credit. It was as if she could not exist independently of a decision made when she was 14. Publicly attacking the academy was never an option. It would have destroyed her reputation overnight. She would be labeled ungrateful, bitter, immature. So she stayed silent. She kept working. She kept improving. But frustration does not vanish. It waits. That release came on live television. The interview was meant to be routine. A post-tournament conversation after a strong run at a WTA 250 event. Semifinals. A 3-set battle against a top 20 opponent. A performance that showed growth and legitimacy on the professional circuit. Recognition was expected. What no one expected was the truth. She was finally ready to tell. The interviewer was friendly. The setting was relaxed. Everything felt routine, comfortable, predictable. Until it wasn't. Following what seemed like a safe and obvious question, the interviewer asked Aya to reflect on her journey and express gratitude for the opportunities she had received. Then came the line that shifted everything. Rafael Nadal really gave you a second home at his academy, didn't he? How much of your success do you owe to that gift? There was a pause. Just a fraction too long. Anyone watching closely could see it. Aya's expression changed. The smile stayed, but it hardened. It became deliberate, grounded, real. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, steady, and unfiltered. With all due respect, it wasn't a gift. My family paid for me to be there. I earned my place through my results. The academy is a business, and I was a client, a hardworking one. I appreciate the training, the facilities, the experience, but calling it a gift erases the sacrifices my family made and the work I put in every single day. The interviewer froze. Somewhere off camera, panic spread through the control room. This was not the script. This was not the feel-good moment they expected. And Aya wasn't finished. With each sentence, she dismantled a narrative that had followed her for years. People act like I should be forever grateful, like I owe my entire career to one decision made when I was 14. But I'm the one on the court. I'm the one dealing with injuries, pressure, expectations. I'm the one representing my country. Yes, the academy helped, but so did my parents, my coaches, my team, and my own determination. I wasn't rescued. I worked for everything I have. The silence afterward was heavy, deafening. The interviewer attempted to recover, stumbling through a follow-up, but the moment had already passed. Whether you saw it as damage or liberation, it was done. Aya had reclaimed her story. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Social media erupted instantly. The interview went viral before the broadcast even finished. Twitter exploded. Instagram flooded with reactions. TikTok creators dissected every word, every pause, every facial expression. The tennis world split in half overnight. Lines were drawn immediately. On one side, Aya's supporters surged forward. Young athletes, women in sports, players from underrepresented countries. They recognized themselves in her words. They understood what it meant to have your success credited to someone else. They knew the frustration of being framed as a charity case instead of a professional who earned their place. The hashtag Team Aya trended for days. Praise poured in for her courage, her honesty, her refusal to accept a narrative that minimized her effort. One viral post said it plainly. These academies aren't charities. They're businesses. Stop acting like kids should be grateful for the privilege of paying tuition. Another comment from a former junior player gained traction. I trained at an elite academy too. My parents went into debt. I worked non-stop, but every article talked about the academy like I was a project. Aya is speaking for so many of us. But the backlash was just as intense. Nadal's fan base is massive and fiercely loyal. To them, Aya's comments felt disrespectful and opportunistic. They argued that without the Academy's reputation and resources, she would never have reached this level. They pointed to Nadal's humility, his philanthropy, his contributions to the sport. They couldn't understand why she would challenge him publicly. She would be nobody without that academy, one comment read. Ungrateful, said another. He didn't have to help her. Analysts jumped in. Some defended her right to tell her own story. Others warned she was burning bridges. Retired players weighed in. Coaches shared divided opinions. Agents whispered about sponsorship risks and marketability. The conversation grew bigger than tennis. It became about power, privilege, gratitude, and the cost of speaking honestly in a system that rewards silence. Meanwhile, Nadal's camp said nothing. No statement. No response. Just silence. And that silence only fueled speculation. Was he offended? Angry? Indifferent? Or was letting Aya take the heat the safest strategy of all? But in all the noise, most people missed the point. Because if you listen closely, Aya never attacked Rafael Nadal. She never questioned his character. She never discredited the academy or denied its value. What she did was clarify. She drew a line between gratitude and ownership. Her message was simple. Paying for a service does not make it a gift. Access does not erase effort. Opportunity does not replace achievement. She was not diminishing Nadal's contribution to tennis. She was insisting that her contribution to her own career be acknowledged equally. That distinction matters, especially for athletes from smaller or less traditional tennis nations. There is an unspoken expectation that they should be endlessly grateful for opportunities others take for granted. When players from powerhouses train at elite academies, it's normal. When someone from the Philippines does it, it's framed as charity. Aya was pushing back against that double standard. She was saying she belonged because she earned it. As the controversy settled, some journalists revisited the interview with fresh eyes. They noted her tone wasn't angry or bitter. It was factual, controlled, corrective. She acknowledged the Academy's role while refusing to accept permanent indebtedness. Former players came forward with similar stories. They talked about how exhausting it is to thank people for paid services while carrying all responsibility for failure alone. A sports psychologist offered one of the most insightful perspectives. She explained how rescue narratives create unhealthy power dynamics. They make young athletes feel indebted, less confident, and hesitant to advocate for themselves. They interfere with identity development and long-term performance. Aya wasn't being ungrateful. She was setting boundaries. She was doing something healthy. So, where does this leave us? The dust hasn't settled, and it may never fully settle. Some will always see this moment as a mistake. Others will see it as a turning point. But one thing is undeniable. The conversation has changed. People are now questioning how we frame mentorship, how we distribute credit, and who carries blame when things go wrong. These are uncomfortable questions, but necessary ones. For Nadal, this moment doesn't have to be negative. It could be an opportunity to evolve the conversation around his academy, to acknowledge it as both a business and a development platform, to celebrate a player who no longer needs the shadow of his name. For Aya, the path forward is uncertain. This honesty may cost her endorsements. It may make institutions uneasy. It may follow her throughout her career. But it may also inspire a generation of athletes to reclaim their stories and demand recognition for their work. That impact could matter more than any trophy. The real question remains, what do we owe the people who help us? And what do they owe us in return? Gratitude matters. Support matters. But so do autonomy, self-respect, and the right to define your own journey. You can appreciate open doors while insisting you're the one who walked through them. Alex Eala reminded us of that. She reminded us that athletes are not products of a single decision or a single institution. They are built through countless sacrifices, choices, failures, and victories that happen far from the spotlight. Her story is still being written, but one thing is clear. She is no longer a character in someone else's narrative. She is writing her own. And regardless of where you stand, it takes courage to pick up the pen.